It's just Bruce, he don't bite. Hello?
Tonight, Bruce is going to talk about one of the most famous horror movie actors of all time, Vincent Price. From his first horror movie in 1953 to his last movie, Edward Scissorhands, in 1990, he was an amazing actor. Let's get started, shall we?
So the other night I did a video about splatter films in the 80s. Slasher films, splatter films, whatever you want to call them. And I loved the 80s. I loved the slasher films we grew up in. The gorier the better. It was just the thing to do for us Gen Xers back then. But it got me thinking, I mean, I really do love horror movies anyway. I watched them all the time. But I started going back before the 80s when I was just a little kid. Now, I was born in 1968. So in the 70s, I was just a little toddler up until 10 years old. And I loved horror movies back then, too. Problem was, we didn't have cable back then. We had just regular... Young people were never going to understand this. We only had a few channels, and then Channel 13 was the PBS station. And late at night, the PBS station would play old black and white movies. And every once in a while, I get to see a horror movie. Now, these late-night horror movies weren't modern. They weren't 70s movies. They were like 30s, 40s, and 50s movies, all in black and white, even up till Night of the Living Dead, which was 1969 is when that came out. And that actually reran on this channel. Channel 13, WQED. It's still a channel today in Pittsburgh. But they don't run the movies late at night like they used to. But when I was a kid, I would look forward to watching these horror movies late at night. I get to see movies like the 1931 version of Dracula. The first, I think it was the first movie that wasn't a silent movie. It was like breaking ground back then. And had Bela Lugosi being all creepy and everything. You know, little kid, they used to creep me out. Frankenstein, Wolfman, all the classics. I got to watch all of them late at night, you know, in my room with a little black and white TV. When they were black and white movies anyways, it didn't really matter. But the one actor that really stood out through my childhood, before Star Wars, of course, because, you know, we're talking the 70s, was Vincent Price. Now, Vincent Price is an old actor. He's pictured right here. You probably recognize his face. If you don't recognize his face, you definitely recognize the laugh, which I tried to put on this video, but it got copyright things, so I had to eliminate it. Anyway, Vincent Price was born May 27th, 1911. And he made over 52 movies, not to mention hundreds of television appearances across the world. But he didn't get known to being a horror actor until he did House of Wax in 1953. After that, that's all he did. He was known as a really scary guy. And he was. If you could hear him talk or just see his persona and the way he acted, it was good for the time. He was good for the time. I mean, now he'd be a little cheesy. But it's what we had in the 70s. And he used to scare the crap out of me, I'm not going to lie. So I would love watching him. When his Vincent Price movie came on late at night on WQED, I was watching it, no matter what. And I got yelled at. I got in trouble all the time. But like I said, he made over 52 movies. And we're not going to go over all 52 movies. We're going to go over my favorites. And, let's get started with what I think, what I like the best. The first movie I mentioned is obviously House of Wax, 1950. It was made in 1953. I wasn't around then. Remember, I saw all these in reruns in the 70s, and I'll still watch them today. This is actually a poster from the colorized version. Still good. It's still good. It's old, it's creepy, and give it a try if you can find it. You can find it online somewhere, I'm sure. Heck, you might even be able to find it for free on YouTube. That's how old it is. But it's a good movie. The next movie that became one of my favorites when I was a little kid is The Last Man on Earth, starring Vincent Price, of course. And that is an apocalypse movie where he's the last man on Earth, so he thinks, and the zombies take over. And he has to fight zombies. Apparently, he's immune to the disease. And, I'm not going to ruin the movie for you, but it was based on a 1954 novel called I Am Legend. And that was written by Richard Matheson. Sound familiar? Will Smith's movie I Am Legend is based on this. It's a remake. It's a modern-day remake of The Last Man on Earth. So, check out the original. And I know that's free on Tubi. I just watched it today. So, and it got me thinking. That's why I did the research. I'm like, well, that makes a lot of sense. And I kind of figured because, the story's kind of close. So, yeah, check that one out if you get a chance. And if you check any of these movies out, please leave a comment. Tell me what you think about them. I mean, I know they're old school and they're a little cheesy and bad graphics, but that's what they had back then when they made these movies. But it wasn't the graphics, it was the story. We paid more attention to the story, and they had a way of being suspenseful that isn't done anymore nowadays. It's hard to explain how I feel about that. Anyway, next movie. So this one's from 1963. It is a comedy of terror. And you can see it's a little funny, a little campy and cheesy. But it was a good movie, and I couldn't stop watching it. And every time I come on, I'd watch it. If you get a chance, check it out. It has a lot of cool stars in it. Boris Karloff's actually in this, too. Yeah, check it out. And let me know in the comments if you've ever seen it. Like I said, I'm not going to go into full detail with these movies. Next movie. I'm saving my two favorites for last. So here's my first favorite, and then my all-time favorite will be right after. And my number 2 favorite is House on Haunted Hill. And this is a very famous movie that he was in, and it also got remade. And it was such a good movie the first time. When they remade it, they made the main character named Mr. Price. This was my favorite Vincent Price movie because I remember as a little kid getting scared by the little old lady coming out like this. In fact, in post-production, hopefully I remember, I'll throw a picture up here. So if this picture's here, maybe you might not remember the scene. Gen Xers might. But I want to show you that this old lady scared the hell out of me when I was a little boy watching these movies. And that's what I took from this movie. And the only thing to ever give me nightmares out of a horror movie was that girl. And it should be right there now. Scary. And basically the idea of this is he got a bunch of people together. He asked for a party. And the object that they got paid $10,000 if they survived the night living in a supposedly haunted house. And changed it a little bit for the remake. I think they were going to get $1 million for surviving the night. It's a really, really good one, and you should watch both of them just to pick out the differences, because I found it fascinating. And I think it's great in the new remake on House on Haunted Hill, they made the main character, instead of the character's name that was in the old movie, they actually made his name Mr. Price in honor of Vincent Price. That's pretty cool. Like I said, that's my number 2. Now for my number 1 favorite. My number 1 favorite Vincent Price movie of all times is House of the Long Shadows. Now, I didn't watch this in the 70s. It's a 1983 movie. Yeah, he did it later in life. I was old enough to, because I already loved Vincent Price from earlier. I got to watch this. But you get a bonus in this one. Because not only have Vincent Price, but you have Peter Cushing, who was in Star Wars, Christopher Lee, who was in some Star Wars himself, and that's just an extra added bonus. In fact, on my eBay page, I make figures of the 3, I call them the Masters of Horror. They did a lot of work together in a lot of these movies, but this is the one time all 3 of them were together. It'd be really cool if Vincent Price was in Star Wars, but he was not. But that's why this one is and it's a good story too. But that's why this movie is my all-time favorite Vincent Price movie. Now, the whole time Vincent Price was doing these movies, he was always doing a lot of TV shows and stuff like that. And he's a lot of younger people know he's real famous for being in Michael Jackson's Thriller video, or maybe Edward Scissorhands, which was, I believe, his last movie role. I'm pretty sure. And that iconic laugh at the end, I mentioned it before. I'd love to put it in this video, but I know it's going to get copyright stricken because I tried it before and had to reshoot this. It's just so the younger people got a little taste of him toward the end. I know my daughters thought he was amazing. I mean, heck, the guy even did the Muppet Show. It was just, I admire the guy. And that's, like I said, I just want to do a little brief history today about him. That's about all I had to say. So check out some of his movies. And if you like this video, like, subscribe if you want to. But give me a like, give me a comment. Because if you like this video, I might go on to do Peter Cushing and then Christopher Lee too. Because those are 2 other guys that were in a lot of these movies that I really appreciated. And if you guys feel the same way, then I'll take the time to talk about it. Until then, and now Halloween's coming up too, but I'm sure I'll talk about Halloween before it gets here. If you're watching this after Halloween, you missed a good Halloween. Until next time, guys. Bye.
Thank you for joining us this evening. May all your dreams be nightmares.